Hi guys, this is Allison from Allykatkreations. How are you? I'm really excited. So the other day, finished The Keys to the Universe, but then I found out there's a part 2, and I found it. And we're going to be reading that today. Really excited about this one. Before I do begin with this new venture and a new book, please hit that like. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already. Helps me out. And share to spread the knowledge. And if you get anything out of my work and would like to support me, the information will be in the box below on how you can do so. I'm making my way, guys. I'm trying. I'm putting it out into the ethers. My co-host might be joining us, Miss Morgan Cat. So let's begin. The Key of Destiny, sequel to The Key to the Universe by Harriette Augusta Curtis and F. Homer Curtis, MD. I'm really excited about this one. I'm going to read the preface. Since our Key to the Universe gave the spiritual interpretation of the numbers, Hebrew letters, tarot cards, and commandments from 1 to 10 only, this volume, which covers the numbers from 11 to 22, is a necessary sequel. In the former volume, we endeavored to show that all personal experiences are expressions of the one great law, manifesting according to mathematical principles, demonstrating that the unfoldment of the godlike possibilities inherent in each soul follows, step by step, the same order of events that is followed in the evolution of the cosmos, and that such steps are symbolized by the first 22 numbers. In this volume, we continue that elucidation, but in addition show why there is a 12-fold basis for physical manifestation, and hence for all the allegories and myths which embody the principles of that manifestation. This we have been able to do by the discovery of philosophical reason and its geometrical and mathematical proof why the Zodiac is divided into 12 and not another number of parts. This gives the key to an ancient allegories and myths, which have 12 as a basis, since they are all founded on the 12-fold division of the Zodiac. We have also been able to give a clear, consistent, and adequate interpretation of the 12 Laborers of Hercules, which, as far as we have been able to discover, have never been systematically interpreted as a whole, although some attempts have been made to interpret individual laborers here and there, but not as a part of a system during all the ages that have been able for man's inspiration and guidance. Since the discovery of this 12-fold manifestation of man's destiny is the greatest single contribution presented in this volume, we have used it as the basis for the title, The Key of Destiny. New York City, April 15th. Ooh, a day before my birthday. 1919. No, I wasn't born in 1919. I gotta scroll, guys. I'm going to read the foreword as well. In this volume, we consider man no longer a weak, sinful puppet of fate, ignorant of his own possibilities and blind to his place in evolution and to his great destiny, but man who has now taken his destiny in his own hands, has grasped the mighty scheme of the universe and understands that this earth is an evolved theater on whose stage he shall work out his evolution according to mathematical laws. Guys, I've been talking about that. I just don't add the mathematics into my scenario. So I am not completely batshit crazy, FYI. He now comprehends something of the significance of the promise made him in the beginning. Quote, ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil, end quote. He now deliberately plucks the golden apples that grow high on the tree of knowledge and is determined to eat of them, no longer at the suggestion of the serpent, for he has reaped the bitter experience both of haste and of disobedience to his divine guidance, and can no longer be seduced by the senses, but at the direction of the Lord God who planted the tree in the midst of the garden. Moreover, during all the dark night of his past evolution, through which he has reaped the results of his first mistake, he has felt the irresistible urge to press on and conquer, has always heard in the great silences of his soul the rhythmic cadences of the wonderful harmony of the spheres, and has reached that a universe is so perfect, a harmony so complete and so rich in melodies, so inspiring, was not brought forth by chance. Now he knows that man, being the Lord of creation, must have within him the possibility of reaching the same perfection and of striking a still higher note in this wonderful scale. In fact, he must lead the orchestra. Again and again, when his weary senses have grown faint from the battle of life, he has sunk into the embrace of the solace and boon given to humanity when it made its great mistake, namely, quote, ye shall surely die, end quote. He has realized that without his experience of rest and recuperation, commonly called death, he could never reach the goal of his divine destiny. For each period of so-called death, he has realized that although the angel of the flaming sword has shut him out of Eden while in his physical embodiment, yet the gates of death were but an open sesame, admitting him once more in the garden of his soul. And there he had met the Lord walking in his garden at the close of each day of earth life, and has heard from his lips such words of encouragement that he has risen each new morning of earth life more full and of hope and strength and understanding and determination to conquer. In this volume, we take up the history of man's evolution at the point of number 11. After he has passed a full period of effort from 1 to 10, and has been born into earth life like a giant rising from his sleep, full of renewed vigor, from the steep upward climb to conscious perfection, from the new beginning of number 11 to the ultimate attainment of number 22. So exciting. You see my co-host right here? Hi, guys. Hi. I'm annoying my mommy. Oh, yes, I am. I'm annoying my mommy because I want my spot, but mommy needs the spot. My old lady's 17, if you have any new viewers here. She keeps tapping my finger because she wants pets. Be right back. The Key of Destiny, Chapter 1, the number 11, a new beginning. Quote, the compound numbers having 10 as their foundation must be considered not as fundamental principles, but as the working out of these principles, each repetition of 10 marking a new phase of the principal representation by its unit number, end quote. Numbers and letters peak, I think. It's hard to see with the text. Quote, When, therefore, we ascribe certain qualities or properties to a number, it is on account of particular connotation or association of ideas impressed upon us by reference to universal standards, principles, and laws. End quote. The Kabbalah of Numbers. Sephariel. Having described in the key to the universe the spiritual principles, laws, and symbology indicated by the numbers from 1 to 10, we herein take up the symbology of the numbers above 10. These refer to higher cycles of unfoldment and evolution than the earlier numbers, yet they include the fundamental significance of the single numbers. For instance, as man starts out upon his first cycle of manifestation with the number 1, so in number 11, he starts out upon another new and more advanced cycle of manifestation. But with all the experience gained during the previous cycle stored up as potencies and built into his consciousness as inherent faculties, the first and fundamental meaning of number 11 must therefore be a new beginning, but one which depends for its accomplishment upon the wisdom and efficiency acquired during the past cycle from 1 to 10 already described. It may be compared to the graduate of a professional school who, when he puts out his shingle, starts out upon and eagerly looks forward to a new life of active accomplishment, a new beginning. But his accomplishment will depend upon how much of his professional training he has already absorbed and how much of the wisdom he has built into his experience, his consciousness, and made his own. Or it may be likened to an apprentice taking his first position as a journeyman, earning a man's wage and looking forward to building up a business of his own. His success will depend upon how much skill and business training he has obtained during his cycle of apprenticeship, 1 to 10. Number 11 is this sense may be called the number of reincarnation, a reincarnation in consciousness, if not in body, for we pass through many deaths of ideas and many births into new consciousness in one physical life period. Kabbalistically, number 11 is called the beginning of whirling motion, the turning of the wheel of time, beginning a new cycle. Again, the number of reincarnation. Another way in which to consider number 11 is that just as number 1 is a downpouring of the one life into the chaotic conditions of the undifferentiated chaos composed of substances cast off during a previous world period, so here in 11, we have another outpouring of the same one life. But instead of it being into the cycle of an unorganized chaos, it is now poured into the cycle of man's own inherent, although unmanifested powers. For this new circle, which is the circle we saw standing beside him in number 10, contains not only his unconquered and undeveloped conditions and emanations, but also the power and possibilities gained in the past, into which the one life is now pouring, splitting the darkness and separating in his mental world the good from the evil, the true from the false, the essential from the non-essential. Hence 11 is the link between the macrocosm of man and the microcosm. In reality is a reflex current of vital life force, making man one with all that is, a responsible agent, God's ambassador. Here it is that the spirit of man becomes one with the universal spirit of all life. Here a new outpouring of the spirit can be felt hovering over the waters, the unstable conditions of his own life. And here by the power and might of the Christ within, he can say, as did the Elohim to the dark cosmic chaos in the beginning, quote, "Let there be light," end quote. If one who has passed the cycle of 10 is ready to make a new beginning, and start out on his real life work, seems to be standing alone, and another with like development should become vitally associated with him through similar attainments, aims, and ideals. Instead of having the strength and force of two individuals, they would have the power of 11. For between them is the experience of the intervening digits or the strength of 10. But to obtain these, there must be a vital inner union and not a mere intellectual association. Standing thus shoulder to shoulder, they can start out on a new beginning in a higher cycle than either could have obtained alone. This, it was said of Sir Galahad, quote, his sword is as the sword of 10 because his heart is true, end quote. In a deeper sense, at the point of unfoldment symbolized by number 11, the true knight, or the purified and disciplined personality, has laid hold of the one life, which he now recognizes as standing beside him, 10 plus 1. And it is the divine one that becomes his rod of power, his mighty invincible sword, quote, Excalibur, end quote. Also the spear of Parsifal, with which he is to fight his way to victory in a new cycle. But it must be remembered that although the disciple, like Sir Galahad, has won his sword, he has not yet learned to use it. In the cycle of 10, which he has just completed, he has gained the strength and courage to wench the sword from the rock of materiality, in which it was embedded in the midst of the lake or waters of illusion. He must wrest the sword of the spirit from the foundation stone of truth, where it rests surrounded by illusion of the outer world. For only when he knows its value and by the power of righteousness grasps and draws it out, does he open a channel through which the one life can pour forth for him to use in his new cycle. The sword represents the same thing as the sphere of Amfortas, which in the hands of a pure knight is invincible. But if through yielding to temptation, its possessor allows it to be seized by Klingspor, the resulting wound would be incurable until the sphere has been recovered by a pure knight, Parsifal, and has been touched to the wound after the knight has entered the castle of the Grail. For the sphere is the second one of number 11. Thus, although both Parsifal and Galahad had completed their cycle of 10, they could not manifest it until they had begun to utilize the new one, thus obtained to heal and bless and overcome evil in their cycle 11. Number 11 is considered by some as an unlucky or evil number and is called by the number of separation, differentiation, the parting of ways, also the number of sin and repentance. Since it is at this number that the disciple must start out upon a new and untried life cycle and put his past experience to the test, it may well be called differentiation and separation, for it is here that he must answer the call of the Christ. Quote, come out from among them and be ye separate, end quote. Step out of the cycle of the first 9 digits in which the mass of humanity is still evolving and prove by his life that he has built-in experience of the past cycle, hence now a disciple, and can be separate himself from it. Again, since sin is the misapplication or perversion of the law, at this step, the untried disciple, unless very true, wise, and valiant, may be wounded with his own magic sphere. Yet, because he has entered upon the cycle of number 11, his repentance will be sincere and enduring. Once having entered the path at number 11, there is no going back. Even through the wounds may bleed for many years, true repentance will surely bring healing and renewed strength. Repentance is not merely sorrow for mistakes, but turning around and facing the other way, turning our backs upon the mistakes of the past. calling for future use the experience from each event, but manfully bearing the results in doing our duty, even though, like Amfortas, the wound bleeds at every step. Westcott says of number 11, quote, "This seems to be the type of a number with an evil reputation among certain peoples," end quote. While many unthinking people are given to condemning that which they do not understand, especially anything which imposes on them the responsibility for their own thoughts and actions, among earnest and true-hearted knights who have kept their night of vigil prayerfully before the altar of their own hearts, who have caught a glimpse of the glory of the Grail as the morning of their new cycle dawns, who have received the accolade upon the shoulder from the hand of the great initiator in the silence and sacred hush of their midnight vigil, who have listened enraptured to the mysterious choir of angelic voices bidding them to go forth and conquer. To all such number 11 will be as the light of a glorious new day, revealing wonderful vistas of great possibilities. As to the evil reputation, did not Jesus have an evil reputation among the rulers of the synagogue? And every true follower of the Master Jesus who has taken up in earnest this new life of self-mastery must expect to face more or less of evil reputation. For did not Jesus tell his disciples, quote, "Woe unto you when all men shall speak well of you," end quote. Quote, "The disciple is not above his master, but everyone that is perfect shall be as his master," end quote. Shall become master of himself. The number 11 has gained its evil reputation, as do all other good things, through misinterpretation and misunderstanding. In this case, the old Kabbalistic teachings, which contrast 11 with perfection as expressed in 10, call it evil because it departs from the perfection. But they fully understood, and in their quaint language, fully set forth its true significance. That having reached perfection in 10, number 11 starts out on a new quest for a greater perfection in a new greater cycle. Hence, they tried to impress the idea that at this step, there may be more or less foreboding of the unknown, as the new and unmanifested cycle looms ahead. When he takes the pilgrim staff in hand and starts anew to climb to greater and unknown heights, the disciple knows well that the road leads uphill all the way and is beset with many dangers and temptations, yet he dares all. The whole cycle of necessity through which the soul must journey, as expressed in the numbers from 1 to 22, is graphically symbolized in Bunyan's Pilgrim's Progress. On that journey, every rest house might be compared to a number 10, where the pilgrim, having successfully conquered the dangers past, may rest and refresh himself and be given wise counsel and strength for his new beginning. Number 11 is the pilgrim starting afresh on his journey after his first rest. Hence, well might the Kabbalists say of it that it contains within it the essence of all that is sinful, harmful, and imperfect. Yet it also contains the strength, understanding, and experience that will conquer all that is met within the new cycle. He knows, he dares, hence can do. If he has learned sufficient discretion to keep silent, and the inherent strength and power of will, which has enabled him to come thus far, will carry him to the next rest house. As his disciple grasps and begins to use the new acquired power of the one life according to the knowledge and strength gained, he makes so many mistakes that at first the new life may seem more inharmonious, difficult, and evil than the old. Hence, in number 11, the great lesson is the power is obtained only by use, and obtainment is won only through persistence. In the Hebrew, the word 11 is ashad, asher, I, or 110, God and God. Aphelios Levi connects 11 with the astral light, which he calls the magical agent in which all things are reflected. He also calls in manas, or man's higher and lower mind. This idea he found upon the ability of man's mind to reach up to the greatest heights or to descend to the lowest depths. This idea is correct for number 11. Man has received a new influx of power, and having free will, must decide whether he use it for good or evil. Again, the two ones standing side by side and representing force. Levi also calls it the magical chain, claiming that wherever two or more persons stand side by side, united in ideas and lines of action, they form a magic chain capable of influencing others. Apollonius, in treating of the hours of initiation, makes 10 the first hour. It is an hour of joy. The neophyte has completed his trial of initiation and has passed its terrible tests. Yet it is also an hour of trial and must depend upon it. Among the Egyptians, they call it the Sphinx as a symbol of the first hour and called it the guardian of his stoic wisdom. The human head of the Sphinx at this step says to the aspirant for the higher cycle, quote, first acquired the knowledge, end quote. Its bull's thighs indicate to him, quote, be strong and patient in thy work, end quote. Its lion's paws say to him, quote, thou must be brave and defend thyself against every inferior force, end quote. Its eagle's wings say, quote, thou must will to rise thyself towards the transcendent regions, which thy soul already approaches, end quote. Number 11 is the second hour, and Apollonius calls it the abyss of fire, the virtues of stars, close as a crown through the dragons and the fire, the magnetic chain. At this step, the disciple must learn to distinguish the course of the positive and negative currents of force in his own body, also to distinguish between good and evil, to choose between them, not so simple a decision as it sounds. This is so good. I'm mind blown. Chapter 2, the number 11, the initiate. Quote, figures are symbols of numbers. Numbers are symbols of eternal principles. Principles are unchanging qualities that belong to begin. They cannot be weakened or strengthened in their true natures, but always contain their primal existence and essence. End quote. Numbers and letters peak. There is an 11-year cycle of the sun, which exemplifies all that we have said of number 11. For according to the secret wisdom, quote, the sun is the heart of the solar world system, and its brain is hidden behind the visible sun. Thence, sensation is radiated into every nerve center of the great body, and the waves of life essence flow into each artery and vein, end quote. Like the heart of man, this great solar heart circulates the vital life essence, comparable to the blood in man, throughout the entire solar system, and regularly contracts at every return of the vital essence to the sun in a rhythmic cadence accordingly to that of the heart of man. But instead of this rhythmic heart beats taking place in a little less than a second, as they do in the heart of man, it requires 10 years for the solar blood to circulate through the system, and another year, making 11 for it to pass through its urcusal and ventricle, be purified in the lungs by the great breath, and be ready again to be sent out through the arteries of the cosmos. This is the fixed cycle of 11 years, well known to astronomers. during which the sunspots regularly increase in intensity and numbers. Quote, could the human heart be made luminous and the living and throbbing organ made visible so as to have it reflected upon a screen that everyone would see the sunspot phenomena reflected every second, end quote. Astronomers have also noted that every 11 years, the Earth passes through a specially dense stream of meteors, proving that the Earth receives a special influx of physical matter from other planets and systems every 11 years, bringing to the Earth materials for a new cycle. Thus, it will be seen that we have exacted proof in nature of our statement that the fundamental meaning of number 11 is that of a cyclic new beginning. The 11th sign of the zodiac is Aquarius, and the Kabbalistic value of its name is also 11. It is the sign of the Son of Man, and its symbol is a water bearer, a man pouring forth the water of life, that the crops for a new season may be fructified and germinated. As we enter upon this new Aquarian age, we almost hold our breath in expectation of the mighty unfoldment which this great age will bring forth, even through the turmoil of battle, through the smoke and din of bursting shells, and amid the groans of the dying and the lamentations of the bereaved. We strain our eyes and ears for the first indications of the glory of the coming of the new age. As the cosmos passes through this sign, all that is expressed is in its symbology will be manifested at least in outline. The Son of Man will indeed come, not merely as a sign in the heavens, but as an embodiment of divine love to man. For the spiritual water of life will be poured out in abundance upon the earth and upon humanity. In fact, if we examine into all this term water of life means, we will find that it has many interpretations, but there can and are three that are of fundamental importance. The Son of Man must come out into manifestation through the three deacons or doors of the sign of Aquarius and reach perfection in each. The first door is already open. Through it, the water of life is being poured forth into the lowest aspect in the rivers of blood, the physical water of life, shed on the battlefields, that the earth may be purged of its lower aspects of selfishness, passion, greed, envy, hate, and personal aggrandizement. The second door, in that which opens in the astral and mental worlds, through which the quickening power of the water of life shall pour to germinate and bring to bloom the seeds of an expanded and illuminated consciousness, and an opening of the astral faculties through which man shall see, feel, and realize his oneness with the worlds of life and consciousness above the physical. The third door is the middle deacon, or balance force of Aquarius, through which shall pour forth this spiritual aspect of the water of life, to quicken and unfold man's true spiritual consciousness. We are now only at the beginning, but ultimately the water of life shall pour forth in all aspects until each of the three doors stand open wide, and the sun of righteousness shall shine from a new heaven upon a new world. Then from these open doors shall come forth the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. Among the Greeks, 11 is a number of Zeus, because of the idea of ever becoming, while among the Scandinavians, it is held sacred to the Valkyries. The 11 of the Buddhistic meditations is the wind or the breath of the spirit. Among precious stones, 11 is represented by jasith, which we are told in Revelation forms the 11th foundation stone of the New Jerusalem. The jasith is sometimes called the hyacinth, which is the Encyclopedia Britannica identifies with the sapphire of blue corundum, a dark blue stone of a true indigo color. And it is curious to note that among many historic writers who assign certain gems to the signs of the zodiac, garnets, are carelessly assigned to the Aquarius, the 11th sign, and many of the gems known to gem trade as hyacinths are only garnets. Hence, it is only natural that in this superficial age, garnet should be assigned to Aquarius instead of the real sapphire, a gem which is much rarer and more expensive. A true Aquarian person, one who is truly manifesting the force of that sign, not merely born in it, will have no difficulty in discovering that there is no affinity between himself and garnets, while wear such an one to own and wear a true blue sapphire, the vibrations would be found to be very satisfying and helpful. Among trees, the aspen and varieties of pine and cedar are affinitized with 11. They are the most primitive trees, hence when portions of the earth, which have finished their period of purification beneath the sea, rise and become ready for vegetation, these trees will be the earliest forms to secure a foothold and flourish. They are related to number 11 because they start a new cycle of vegetation. Among the disciples, 11th is Matthew, and among the planets, the 11th is Jupiter, which is this aspect is called the king of the spirits of air, or the sylphs. The sylphs are very shy of, if not distinctively antagonistic to man, unless he has really reached the point of development indicated by number 11 and can affinitize with them, then they become friendly and helpful. Among birds, the eagle rising from earth into a new element is related to the number 11. In the human body, number 11 rules the respiratory organs, just as the number 1 is the breath of life. So 11 is the result of the evolution of the breath of life through the digits until it has built up for itself a vehicle with special organs through which it can manifest in a more definite and individualized manner in the physical world in a new cycle. Through the lungs of man, hence in 11, we see man as a specialized instrument for the manifestation of breath of life. For while the animals have lungs, they are unable to use the breath to advance their higher development or reach into higher kingdoms as man can. Those who have reached this step symbolized by 11 are initiates of the lowest degree, but as yet are untied. They have passed the number 9 initiation and have mastered the lessons of that step, which never again need to experience exactly the same conditions. Yet they have not been proven. It is possible for the initiates to become either black magicians, brothers of the shadow, or true disciples of the Great White Lodge. They have learned to govern and control certain forces within themselves and have acquired at least a theoretical knowledge of possibilities of a new life. This, however, does not mean that everyone whose name number is 11 or who is born in the 11th sign has reached this step and become an initiate, for the mere name number or birth number or of itself is very little to do with it. In fact, such numbers may be said to bear about the same proportion to this great cycle of 11 as does the cycle of a day and night to the cycle of a zodiacal sign in heaven, approximately 2,170 years. Remember, there are always cycles within cycles and numbers within numbers. Each individual must again and again pass through the experiences represented by the digits. It is even possible in rare instances for an individual to sweep through the entire gamut from 1 to 10 in a single incarnation, such as one would vibrate first to one number and then to another in rapid succession. Again, as the cycles of the minute, the hour, the day, the year, and the age each work out their complete experience and expression, one within the other without clashing or conflict. So it is in the numerical cycles of one's life. The physical body, with its degree of development and its sensations, has its number. The astral body has its number. which may be quite unlike that of the physical. The mind, both higher and lower, and the spirit, each have their numbers, and all these are consistently changing as the soul advances. Hence, the absurdity of attempting to state the exact degree of unfoldment reached by a soul by a mere computation of the name number, especially since the numbers of the higher states are not known to the personality until the next great initiation has been passed. As well might we hope to find what period in the age or year was meant for a paper merely dated Thursday the 11th, with neither month nor year given. It is useless for the students to try to avoid facing themselves and their creation and conditions, or to try to find a shortcut to spiritual attainment merely by changing their name to one with seemingly more favorable number. The change must be made within themselves. People are constantly met who have developed greatly along certain lines, yet who are very backward along other lines. Therefore, in this domain of numbers and their interpretation and application, the advice given by Pope should be clearly considered. Quote, "A little learning is a dangerous thing. Drink deep or taste not the Pyrenean spring. Their shallow draughts intoxicate the brain, and drinking largely sobers us again," end quote. As a rule, the less we know, the more ready we are to spread abroad the tiny ray of enlightenment we have obtained, believing it to be all-inclusive. Also, fools rush in where angels fear to tread. The humanity of this age would reach its destined height at 11 much more quickly and surely if they paid less attention to an effort to change and improve conditions in their lives by changing their names or even their outer conditions, and listen more attentively to the still small voice within, realizing that only the inner change of unfolding character can really change outer conditions for the better. For the outer is but a manifestation of the inner. Therefore, when we desire to change our outer conditions, we must look within and see what thoughts, habits, desires, old ideas need to be changed, or their outward manifestations can change and give us new beginning or a new cycle of 11. However, the computation of the mere name number has a certain value, both in helping us to see what tasks lie before us in this life, as well as in the case of a name chosen for a public career, such as for use on the stage or as a nom de plume in literature, etc. In each case, it is well to select a name whose numerical value is in harmony with the success of the activity to be entered upon. It is understood that each assumed names are applied to persons only in their public work and do not express either their character or their private life. Persons in public life are connected to and in the public mind by lines of force with certain positions, ideas, and conditions, which they are expected to fulfill, yet they have a right to their own private life in which they are known by their personal names. Oh, the stars. Just so the soul has a private or mystery name by which it is known in the higher worlds, yet the human or outer personality has an outer name by which it is known on earth during each particular incarnation. The mystery name, however, is revealed to the personality only after it has passed a certain stage of unfoldment or incarnation. On the other hand, it must be borne in mind that if one chooses a name whose meaning he does not strive to express and live up to, the forces back of the name which work for its expression will bring disintegration and failure to one who either cannot or who refuses to express the meaning of that name. In our evolution, we must climb 3 mounts. First, the mount of physical attainment symbolized by the Bible by Mount Sinai in the wilderness, on which we are given the law. Second, the mount of intellectual attainment or the mount of transfiguration, where we walk and are at one with Moses, the law, and Elias, the prophets. The third, the mount of spiritual attainment at the mount of crucifixion, where the angels minister unto us and bring us spiritual power, and we say, it is finished. While we are given a name at the summit of each of these mounts, only when we stand one with the law and the prophets can we say, I know as I am known. Between each of these mounts, there are deep valleys, dark canyons, and tangled wilderness to be traversed, each of which may require many incarnations to cross. While on this subject, it may be well to explain that the attainment of Mount Sinai represents the highest pinnacle of worldly honor, fame, power, position, or greatness, which the soul has reached. Hence, the name by which the soul was known on earth during the incarnation is one it usually assumes, while in the astral world after each lesser incarnation, for instance, a Napoleon, when returning to the astral world after a minor or perhaps somewhat obscure incarnation, would not continue to be known by the name used in the obscure incarnation, but would assume the most famous name he had borne, Napoleon. That, of course, would not be his spiritual or mystery name, merely the name of his greatest earthly incarnation. That is very, very interesting. I'm really curious now what name I have up there because of the many very varied incarnations and all the different aspects I played. I wonder what my name is now. Chapter 3, the number 11, reincarnation and transmutation. Quote, now this I say, brethren, that flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of God, neither doth corruption inherit incorruption. Behold, I shew you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed in a moment. For this corruptible must put on incorruption, and this mortal must put on immorality. Then shall we be brought to pass the saying that is written, death is swallowed up in victory. End quote. Corinthians. Number 11, as a new beginning, represents the ensouling of the divine ray sent down into the physical existence by the higher self, upon which it builds up and evolves the various personalities. The Zohar states this in the following manner, quote, in the beginning was the will of the king, the absolute. Prior to any other existence, it sketched the forms of all things that had been concealed but now came into view. And then there went forth a seal secreted from the head of Ein Sof, a nebulous spark of matter without shape or form, end quote. The secret doctrine says, quote, every form on earth and every speck atom in space strives in its efforts towards self-formation to follow the model placed for it in the heavenly man, end quote. While science recognizes that all forms of life are built up of living atoms, the occultist goes a step further and teaches that the atom itself is but the vehicle of the one life that pervades and is inherent in all. The first step in manifestation of the ensouling ray of spirit, Atma, it is differentiation from the absolute. It then builds up and evolves the higher self with its spiritual mind through a higher and pre-human cycle of 9 digits until it reaches the 10 of its cycle and becomes one with its parent, yet having evolved a vehicle or soul, Buddha, through which the ray Atma can manifest in the higher worlds, the 3 in 1, spirit, soul, and spiritual mind, Atma, Buddha, higher manas, constituting the higher self. This point we call its number 10. The higher self then, in turn, sends down a ray of itself into the physical world, adding a new 1 to the 10, around which it builds up successive human personalities like successive pearls on a string. At the death of each personality, all that it was able to manifest of true social growth is indrawn by the divine ray, the thread on which the pearls are strung, quote, the silver thread which binds you to the master, end quote. All the qualities which the soul has actually been able to manifest in incarnation remain after death in what is known as the permanent atom, in which it is expressed the essence of the experience of the body of which it has been a part. When the next human personality is projected, this permanent atom is the nebulous around which the new body is built, or is the key note by which the tone or vibratory rate is transferred to the new body. This permanent atom is composed of 3 units, mental, astral, and physical, and is permanent because it is the focal point in the lower realms for the immortal ray of divinity. It also becomes the center through which the spiritual or superconsciousness mind reaches the human or rational mind. This, at every incarnation, the permanent atom is the center which contains all the accumulated experience and wisdom of all previous incarnations, which the soul has to start out with in each incarnation, just as number 11 includes all the power of the 10 on which it is built. Many human cycles of 10 are passed through until at least a human personality becomes so evolved and perfected in it consciously recognizes the higher self as its father in heaven and does the work of its father, thus entering into the great realization of its oneness with the Father. At this point, the initiate sees the human personality as not a circle containing unmanifested possibilities. He sees the Father, the One, standing at his right hand, and there it comes to him the realization that within the seeing emptiness of the little personal self that are all the potencies of the Father. Then he understands the inner meaning of the command, quote, be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father, which is in heaven, is perfect, end quote. He can now start out consciously and determinedly upon a new pilgrimage of 11, the cycle of transmutation, during which all the potencies of the digits must be expressed, not only in higher realms as during the past cycle, but manifested on earth in the life of the character of the personality, until the completed man, 10, becomes more the man, 11. He thus becomes the pilgrim, 10, who takes the staff, 1, of the one life in his hand and starts out a new cycle of accomplishment in 11. The attainment of this complete manifestation may require many incarnations, for the higher self must build up, evolve, overshadow, and guide many bodies, or it can bring one to the perfection represented by number 10. When this point is reached, the higher self can actually enter into the body of flesh as a stream of light or fire, the first one of number 11. During the cycle of 11, all that has been said about the dot within the circle and the evolution of the one has applied to the cosmos, and the evolution of the personality is now repeated in man's physical body. For the descent of this spiritual fire or spark from the higher self marks the birth of the Christ consciousness in man. For him, it is the Word made flesh. It is God in man, not only in consciousness, but in action, in creative power. The effect upon the body of this birth or entrance into physical flesh of the living fire of the Christos is that the fire at once begins to transmute the mortal flesh into a mortal substance. In the ordinary man, what are known in occultism as the fiery lives work through the first 5 7-year periods, 35, and every incarnation to build up and perfect man's physical body. From the 6th, 7th year period, 35 onward, these fiery lives under ordinary conditions put forth their activities in an opposite way. In other words, they have reached a curve in the magnetic, where the positive activity gradually merges into the negative. Then we say man begins to age. Yet if we bear in mind that all that time the fiery lives are but the force of the divine life, and that their function is to destroy all that interferes with the full manifestation of the higher life, this turn of the tide should prove a most important era, wherein man can consciously lay hold of life, that death may be swallowed up in victory. In man's early and undeveloped incarnations, the death of the body is a great blessing. Man was turned out of Eden unless he eat of the tree of life and live forever. Back at the decree was the greatest love and wisdom, for it compelled him to lay down the undeveloped, unspiritualized body, lest it live forever in its lust and sin and its separation from its Father in heaven. The many stories of the physical immorality, such as the Wandering Jew, Sutra, or intended to illustrate the horror of continuous life in an unregenerated mortal body. When we have really reached number 11 and are ready consciously to unite with the fiery stream of the Christ life, we gladly allow it to burn out the dross. All that cannot be transmuted is consumed and cast out of the system, as are dead ashes out of a furnace. Hence, there is often much sickness during this period, but if the student will hold fast to the thought that it is the fire of the Lord, law, preparing a habitation in body for the Christ, and look upon it as one would look upon the discomforts of house cleaning, he will receive much comfort and understanding. Yet the right attitude in mind, and every precaution known to the highest and most advanced medical science, should be used to assist the process if necessary, for the ultimate end must be a sound mind in a sound body. But we must see to it that the plentiful supply of purified atoms shall flow in to take the place of the old, so that instead of dissolution and death being the result of the consuming force of the fire, as in the case of the ordinary man, death resulting from too much life instead of a lack of it, a constant renewal of the body takes place as this corruption puts on incorruption. This is facing boldly the angel with the flaming sword, the fiery lives, which guards the gates of Eden, Eden being the immortalized and perfected state in which only a spiritualized body can dwell. The thing to bear in mind is that from the 6th, 7th year period on to the 10th, from 42 to 70, the activity of the fiery lives ordinarily destroys the temple, but man must sometime obtain to the knowledge expressed by Jesus. When referring to the fiery lives, he said, quote, "Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will rise it up," end quote. 3 divine periods, 3 or 9. On the 10th or perfect day, the Christ man will have obtained victory over the forces of the body, will in fact have built up a fire body, or one in which the fiery lives, manifesting now only as cold flame, dwell as creators, because there is nothing more that requires destruction. Life is a manifestation of fire, which is divine substance, and in its essence is always creative. It becomes destructive only when it meets with resistance or opposition to its manifestation. Immortality in the flesh is therefore a physical as well as metaphysical possibility, but its attainment does not mean that one who has attained it will have to live on earth forever. But it does mean that such a one can live on earth in such a body as long as its work requires a vehicle on the physical plane. When this is no longer necessary, the vibratory keynote of such a body can be raised until it disappears from the physical and manifests on any higher plane desired. This is the spiritual body referred to by St. Paul, in which through lack of understanding the Christian church teaches can be obtained only in heaven after the death of the physical body. but it cannot be attained merely by passing through the gates of physical death. Only when, like Jesus, we have become one with the Father, higher self, and can leave the personality to die upon the cross of matter and can say, it's finished, we can obtain the spiritual body. As we said in number 1, the spiritual or nirmanaka body is not a ready-made body, which we can inhibit after we leave our poor, worn out, and decayed physical body, but it is a fire body that is built slowly and gradually, cell by cell, within the physical throughout all our incarnations. It is like gold in a crucible. The fire separates the gold from the dross. If there be enough gold, there need be no death, for the fire will find only a little dross to consume as it refines the gold. This process of transmutation begins from within and works outward from the heart center of the inner man. From there, it sends out radiations or lines of force, which gradually set up new subcenters of radiation in various parts, just as does a degenerate and destructive manifestation of life, as seen in the cancer, send out its filaments and cells to distant parts of the body to form new centers of cancerous growth or cell metastasize. And just as the cancer sends out slendering radiation tentacles, which insinuate themselves into surrounding tissues and organs to destroy them, so the fiery lives of the Christ force, when directed by the consciousness of the enlightened number 11 man, manifest in an analogous way, but in a diametrically opposed and constructive manner, for cancer is but the force of evil, devil, incarnated in the flesh instead of the Christ. In fact, while the fiery lives are the vehicles of the Christ life, yet just as the Christ is a positive consuming fire, so does its opposite expression become the negative consuming fires of hell. When we see the devil working in the body as a destroyer, we know it is but the negative pole, or deus inversus. Hence, when we collaborate with the positive pole, life construction integration, we know that it is naturally stronger than the negative pole, death, destruction, disintegration. This is what is meant by saying death is swallowed up in victory. We must always remember, however, lest we condemn another and thus work with the forces of death instead of life, that the individual who is suffering from an organic disease, even a cancer, is possibly helping to bear a part of the mighty karma of mankind rather than exclusively an individual karma. Yet much a method of helping to bear the race karma is not a wise one to choose. We can help lift the awful pall of death and suffering from humanity far more surely and effectively by lifting up the Christ in our hearts and lives, that our cells and atoms may be drawn unto him, than by being nailed to the cross of suffering and letting the Christ be crucified in our flesh. The process of transmuting and purifying goes on throughout every incarnation. In each life, some gains of pure gold are produced, and these are never lost, but are added to the life after life. Every cell which the Christ life has redeemed becomes immortal, and at the next earth life is built into the new body around the sacred centers, so that little by little we inhabit a more and more perfect body, until some life we find it possible to complete the purification and perfection of all our inner blending bodies, mental, astral, and physical. During our long pilgrimage, not one grain of gold is lost, for like Jesus, we may be able to say, quote, that of all which he hath given me, I should lose nothing, but should raise it up again at the last day, end quote. It is these atoms which at the death of the physical, the angels or the shining ones gather up and manipulate under the karmic law into the final glorified body in which there is no death, because each molecule and cell has been purified in the fire of Christ and redeemed forever. This is the Nirmanaka Yas, humble robe. Behold, I show you a mystery. Very interesting. Chapter 4, the number 11, Introduction to the Hebrew letters. Quote, the 22 letters which are the foundation of all things, he arranged upon a sphere with 231 gates, 231 gates, and the sphere may be rotated forward or backward, whether for good or evil. From the good comes true pleasure, from the evil not, but torment, end quote. Sefer Yitzraya. Quote, it is generally conceded that the 10 numbers and the 22 letters are the centers of reflection through which the emanations of unity operate in the lower worlds, and that these 10 numbers and 22 letters are the fundamental principles which make up or mark out the 32 paths of wisdom, end quote. Numbers and letters peak. The Hebrew alphabet represents the foundation of all things, each letter being at the same time a number. By various means of constructing the letter, by differences in the shape and size of a letter, its position in a word, and by the addition of dots or Mesozoic points, both the meaning and the numerical value of the letter are modified. A full explanation of these modifications would require a large volume on the Kabbalah. But since this is not a book on the Hebrew alphabet, but on numbers, the meaning of the letter and the tarot card corresponding to each number is but briefly given for the sake of completeness. Briefly, then, we may say that the 22 letters are all derived from the one letter Yod. This has a numerical value of both 1 and 10 and is called the divine number. It is the equivalent of the English I. From this source spring the 3 mother letters, Aleph, Mem, and Shin, symbolizing air, water, and fire, or considered as 3 aspects of one. They stand for heat, which contains fire, electricity, which contains water, and light, which contains air. These mother letters, like the elements they symbolize, are bringers forth of the manifested universe, yet Ketch brings forth its own peculiar way. For instance, without the sun force, nothing would grow without moisture, nothing would germinate, and nothing without air, neither fire nor water would bring forth. Elf, air, brings forth her children through the atmosphere, which gives life to all nature through the breath, which animates all forms of life, and preeminently through the spirit, which is the breath of life. Breath breathed into the nostrils of man when he became a living soul and was given dominion over all the beasts of the field. Mem, water, brings forth her children through moisture, dew, rain, and tears, water being an essential as air to all forms of life. Shin, fire, is an expression of the spiritual fire, which is the basis of all life. The Trinity formed by these 3 mothers brings the one life into manifestation on the physical plane. 1 + 3 = 4, to form the foundation of all life. From without air, water, fire, no life can manifest on earth. The Sefer Zitraya, says to them, quote, the heavens were produced from fire, the earth from water, and the air from the spirit is the reconciler between the fire and the water. From the fire was made heat, from the water was made cold, and from the air was produced the temperate state, again a mediator between them, end quote. From these 3 mother letters come forth the 7 double letters, each embodying the characteristics of one of the 7 sacred planets. And just as the planets each have a double aspect and influence, a beneficent and a malign, so these double letters have 2 aspects of their hard and soft sounds, which modify the meaning of the words in which they are used. There are also 12 simple letters, which are associated with the 12 signs of the Zodiac. These letters give special force to the words in which they are used, modified by the varying power of the double letters in the word. just as the 12 houses give significance to a horoscope, but modified by the position of the planets in each house. Hence, the 12 simple letters represent the 12 properties or potencies which make up the Earth's aura, while the 7 double letters, like the 7 planets, represent the 7 Elohim expressed through the 7 nature notes and the 7 colors into which the one white light or yod is broken up. For as the planets pass through the zodiac in each sign, there are awakened definite but varying potencies, which blending with the force of the ruling planet, send forth a force that is differentiated from all other forces. All these various differentiated forces acting together form the sum total of that which our earth can express, or we might say the only through the assimilation of the potencies of these forces can the earth unfold the perfect pattern she is some day destined to express. And so it is with man. Only when, like the earth, he has gathered all the zodiacal forces, hold for him can he be said to be one of the 144,000, or the elected who were the first to be sealed. The 3 mothers, like fire, water, and air, are the determining factors in spreading all these forces, hence are determining causes of all creation. For as we have already said, only as moisture, heat, air are combined can the seeds in the earth be germinated. Yet through the planetary forces and the differentiation of the signs through which the planets are passing, will seed bring forth after its kind, for there are no miracles in nature. Quote, God works in mysterious ways, his wonders to perform, end quote. Yet all is law. The true mystic is one who, because he dwells in the tabernacle of the Most High, blends his consciousness with the one life and becomes one in mind with the great oversoul, can learn to understand these mysteries. But since there are no miracles, it is through man made in God's image that they must be revealed. We might compare the zodiac in 22 letters to a switchboard of a mighty wireless station, the letters representing the operating intelligences and the 3 mothers corresponding to the forces coming from the great central sun, the yod, or the avenue through which the power is delivered. This will help us to understand the influence of the zodiac on all things and why it is called the aura of the solar system, in which are contained the potencies of all that shall manifest in the system. The 11th letter, Kaf. Quote, he produced Kaf and referred it to life. He crowned it, combined and formed with it Venus in the universe, the 4th day in the week, and left eye of man, end quote. Sefer Yitzraya. The letter Kaf, or Kaf, corresponds to the English letter K, or Ch, the sounds of both being similar. It is one of the 7 double letters and sacred to Venus, the planet of love. Its 2 aspects being divine love, which is God, and human love, through which man can reach God. For if human love be not degraded, it is also divine. Love and life are synonymous in that it is only love that can produce life. We see these 2 terms thus related in the well-known passage, quote, God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, also the Son in the universe, that whosoever believeth in him also assimilates the divine life force, should not perish, but have everlasting, that is spiritual and enduring life, end quote. Hieroglyphically, Kaf means a hand half closed in the act of reaching out to grasp. Hence, it carries with it the idea of strength and virality. It is also sometimes referred to the palm of the hand, carrying the idea of more than mere physical strength or strength of character attained through reaching out and grasping opportunities and learning their lessons. The palm of the hand in its markings indicate the exact point of development reached by the individual, as well as the possibilities that can be reached during his present incarnation through reaching out in strength and virality. For like this letter, Kef, in the two hands, we have a double power of reaching and grasping, the palm of one hand registering the development obtained, the other registering the point that can be obtained. Hence, we may speak of, quote, the hand of karma, end quote, for the great law, as karma inevitably records the results of our past lives. In the left hand, the mysterious records of the past experiences, which we have built into our character as a page in the book of concealed mysteries. And in the right hand, the opportunities of the present incarnation, that we may work out and balance the past and obtain our real possibilities. Kaf is said to rule over the West, or decline of life, the karmic harvest or ingathering, the hand of karma stretched out to grasp the demand its due. Kaf is also sometimes associated with the idea of, quote, universal love, not the mere human love as commonly understood, but the idea of love associated with Jesus, who has loved the world that he laid down his life for humanity. In this sense, the letter means just that which is meant in the healing prayer when we say, lay thy hands upon us in healing love. For in this sense, Kaf symbolizes the hands, powers of Jesus stretching out to bless. And if the blessing is rejected, stretch it out upon the cross, ultimately to bless through suffering. Hence, we might say Kaf is the lighting to love. Its color is ruby red of bloodshed for the world, for the remission of sin. Also, the color of the priestly robes, as a true priest stands before the altar and stretches out his hands in blessing over the people. Okay. Here we go again with the wrong numbers on the cards. So tarot, this is the Rider-Waite deck. And remember, if you watch the Keys to the Universe series, we have a problem, Houston. So they're claiming that the representation of 11 is strength, when in fact it's justice. That's number 11. See the Roman numerals. But they're claiming this time it's strength. So these two cards were swapped. So this really being number 11, but they're going to talk about strength. And the last time it was strength and they meant justice. So I want you to take a look at the strength card. See, there's an infinity on top. There's a lion. Just wanted to put that out there to show you visually. Because we had this problem before. And as soon as I saw it, I'm like, ooh. The 11th tarot card, strength. The 11th card of the tarot is called strength. A little thought will show that this card has the same significance as the 11th letter, Kef. This card pictures a young girl closing the mouth of a lion with her two hands. The symbology of the lion, Leo, is strength, courage, love, or when uncontrolled animal passion. Yet this card shows woman, the negative power physically, exerting her positive moral and spiritual strength to tame the fierceness of passion, that it may manifest as strong, all-conquering love. She is pictured with the symbol of balance and life upon her head, which we consider under number 8 in the Keys of the Universe, denoting that she has taken a definite step in evolution, has mastered the most potent factor of life, has transmuted passion into universal love. Hence, in the strength of this all-conquering force, she fiercely closes the mouth of the lion and makes of a ravenous beast of prey a tame and loving companion and protector. This is beautifully symbolized by Spencer in the story of Una and the lion. She symbolizes the mother power, which so tames the lion, that ladder on the Christ child that she shall bring forth shall lead it. The lesson of this card is that man's true moral strength lies in the development of negative aspect of his nature, love and compassion. He gains ascendancy over the beasts of the field as well as over himself, when through love he closes their mouth and tames them, instead of using brute strength to cow or kill them. For we can never gain mastery over the beasts of the field until we have mastered the beast within ourselves. And that, I think, my friends, is the end of number. Yes, it is. Yay, we got through number 11. I hope you guys enjoyed that portion of this book, The Key to Destiny. I really did enjoy it. I know it's a little bit of lengthy, but new book. I'm going to try to keep up with just the numbers. This book is a little differently formatted, so I want everybody to understand. I hope you enjoyed this. Please like, share, and subscribe. And if you find any of my work entertaining, you learned something, you got something to take away from it, you got exposed to new literature that you want to purchase and read, please consider making a love donation to me and supporting my work. This is how I support myself and feed myself as I'm withering away. I hope everybody has a wonderful day. Sending each and every one of you love and light. And I hope to see you on the next one. Bye, guys.